You're watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.
It's Wednesdays with Keegan. And Keegan, you were thrust into the spotlight in the Blue Jays series in Pittsburgh. Let's begin there. You and your foray into the Twitter sphere with Tommy Pham. This all started when Tommy Pham had a benches clearing incident because there was just glaring going on. You can take it from there.
Yeah, interesting couple of days. Got back to the hotel room. This was on Monday nights. And I just did, what my job is normally. I tell people what the Blue Jays say. And Tommy Pham did not like what Tyler Heineman said. Probably didn't like what John Schneider said either. And I get it. But, he took that out in my Twitter mentions, which turned into a bit of a mess of people going back and forth with Tommy Pham. And, yeah, Dan, I was just sitting here. I tried to go to bed at one point, and it kept popping up. Tom Pham has replied to you. And that's all right. And I think a lot of people have misinterpreted it as me versus Tommy Pham. No, I'm just kind of like hosting the Airbnb that he's having an argument in. It's been interesting to be nearby it. And I've had a lot of messages about, you can't treat the media like this. He's not doing anything to me, and I don't care. Even if it's things have changed, even in my 10 years covering the Blue Jays. Like this is a very good. Speaking about the Blue Jays specifically, Dan, like this is a really good clubhouse. When I started covering the team, there was always a chance that somebody was going to tell me to bleep, bleep, bleep myself. And part of me misses that. There was a little spice to the day, but things like this with Tommy Pham, nothing to do with me. And even if it was, I don't care. It's fine. But he certainly spoke his piece. And then yesterday, Tuesday, I wandered over to the Pirates clubhouse and waited. And it was interesting because we walked up, myself and Mitch Bannon, a reporter for The Athletic, and just said, hey, man, do you want to talk about yesterday? And he started, well, you guys had all yesterday to blah, blah, blah. He thought we were Pittsburgh guys. But I introduced myself and I said, Tommy, I'm the guy you keep tweeting. I'm Keegan. What's up? And he didn't want to speak too much about it. But he continued to say, Dan, let them know I speak in facts. So he stands by everything he said, Addison Barger included. And interesting couple of days. It's no sweat for me. It makes my job interesting, frankly. But interesting to watch, man. He's certainly got a reputation. And you'll also find guys, Dan, who say, great veteran, great to work with. It's a real dichotomy. But, man. Interesting day in my Twitter mentions.
You mentioned Addison Barger because Tommy Pham openly accused him of taking steroids. Have the Jays said anything about that?
Not publicly out loud. With Barger, it was a stimulant, different than a steroid. And Mitch Bannon spoke to him about that as well. So it's different classification. There was a suspension way back in the day. Any accusation, or whether it's veiled or cloudy or not, about present-day use is pretty serious. Players take that pretty seriously, especially for Addison, who, like you told Mitch, has passed every test since. It was for a stimulant for medication that I believe he has a therapeutic use exemption for now. Lots of guys have that. It's nothing out of the ordinary or new. Tons of guys have those. So that's old history, and Tommy Pham was certainly doing his research. He was deep in the files that night.
So you look at both teams dealing with this situation, and for the Jays, you're like, okay, that's going to bring the club together. Did you talk to any of the other Pirates? And they must just be like, why? What are you doing? Why are you putting this on our plate when we don't need it?
Yeah, it doesn't help anything, certainly. And while I was waiting for Tommy Pham in their clubhouse, it was probably 45 minutes or so before I saw him, and bumped into a couple of old Blue Jays friends. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa was there. Spencer Horwitz was over talking for a while, but just wanted to catch up. Didn't want to be like, hey, how about that guy? And that's where I come to it with Dan. If this was Blue Jays versus Red Sox, sure. Have a big fight, make it a big thing. I get it. It's Blue Jays versus Pirates. And these two teams are headed in very different directions. And that's why I think that nothing really came of it yesterday. We'll see today when Tommy Pham's probably back in the lineup. But what do you gain from beating up on or getting into a fight with a last place team? Probably not much. And the Blue Jays don't need to galvanize themselves. They don't need to come together. They're already together. They're already one of the best teams in baseball. I don't think you need to waste too much energy with that if you're Toronto. And if you're the Pirates, a lot of those guys are young. They're new to the big leagues. There's excitement. But for veteran guys, I'd imagine there's a few who are just like, dude, come on. Like, let's just get to the end of September and get out of here.
So the Blue Jays, they rebound after a lengthy 2-game losing streak, which I don't even know the last time that they've lost 2 in a row. But everything that you wanted to see in this Blue Jays team happened Tuesday night. And once again, Max Scherzer puts in a performance in which we look at it and you're like, are we getting the Max Scherzer? Because his last 4 or 5 starts, we've got the Max Scherzer.
He's spectacular right now, Dan. And none of this happened on purpose. And I struggle to even paint it as a silver lining, blah, blah, blah. But because he missed all that time with his thumb injury, he's fresh right now. And it's something that I'm sure if I said that to Max Scherzer, he would say, shut up, I wish I was pitching. But the way it's all worked out, and a big thanks to Eric Lauer for this, for keeping that rotation safe, it's worked out in a way where Max Scherzer has a full tank of gas right now on August 20th. That's a rare thing, especially for a 41-year-old pitcher. I mean, my God, you're normally talking about, do they have enough at this point of the year? Max Scherzer is full. And as you get into the ALDS, ideally the CS or the World Series, that's going to help, man. And his last 4 starts have been spectacular. I think a 1.8 ERA over 25 innings. And if the playoffs started today, Dan, like August 20th, he's my game 1 starter. Now, Shane Bieber probably changes that over the next 6 weeks. We'll see. But he's still coming back from Tommy John. You need to see it. You need to see it happen first. Max Scherzer has been so damn good. And he's doing it in different ways, which is important. Go back to that start against the Detroit Tigers when he struck out 11. He can still decide to strike hitters out. Then you go back to last week, this one, more efficient, or he's getting up to 104 pitches. He's doing it every way, man. And if Max Scherzer starts and wins a playoff game, that 1-year, $15.5 million deal is brilliant. There have been times this season where I've thought, what were they doing? They might have just set $15.5 million on fire. Now, I don't care, not my money. But I can't believe we're at this point where it might turn into their best move of the entire offseason, one of their best moves ever as a front office.
And George Springer announced that he is officially back as he goes yard. So everything's going so well.
It is. He said he was just trying to move the runner over. So I guess you should do that more often. It was pretty impressive with George. And that had to be a worry because he missed 2.5, close to 3 weeks. And any disruption of timing, of momentum, when you're having a season like this, it's reason for me to wonder, will he get back? And he is. He had hits in his first 3 games. A couple of hits yesterday with that big home run, 423 feet. So impressive what he does. And this is another story, Dan. I didn't see this coming in spring training. I didn't expect it. I never wrote about it. I cannot pretend to have known this was going to happen. But he is the identity of this team, honestly, in terms of how they play baseball. It's not Vladdy. That's not a knock on Vladdy. It's George Springer running hard from first to third, first to home. It's him surprising people in a season where expectations were pretty low. And Springer, I think, has really stepped even more into a leadership role. I know that's weird to say at 35, but I notice it more at this point. And this is why the Blue Jays brought him to Toronto, man. 6 years, $150 million, which at the time was the biggest deal in franchise history. They brought him to Toronto because he was a really good ball player who had had success in October. He'd won a World Series MVP, I think, in 2017 when he was really young with the Astros. And so far, we just haven't seen it. He's had good years, but not in the postseason. He hasn't had that big moment. But if the Jays get into a 5-game or 7-game series, Springer is the guy who will have a moment. I promise you. And it looks like they're going to have a chance to give that to him, that stage, which I didn't think would happen again. I didn't know if George Springer, frankly, Dan, I didn't know if George Springer would be on the roster on August 20th if we go back to March and April. So he's been the best story of the season, I think, for me.
Yeah, two of the best stories, Scherzer and Springer. And now we get into Bieber territory. So is he still scheduled? He's going to get his first start in Miami.
In Miami, Friday. And if you start to chart it out, Dan, you can see some of the logic, because the next start, depending on what the Blue Jays do with this rotation, we don't know yet. The next start probably comes the next weekend, against the Brewers, who are the best team in Major League Baseball. Skip ahead one more week, there's a Yankees series waiting there. So you see the logic behind all of this. And Bieber has nailed this whole rehab start. Now, you're talking about one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball when he's been healthy. He's still 30 years old. His velocities look great. He's controlling his pitches in the minor leagues. Everything is there for this to be really, really good. And the way that John Schneider's explained it is that he already raises their floor, but he can probably raise their ceiling. And I agree with that, because there's a really good chance, maybe bigger than 50% chance, that Bieber is their game one starter in the playoffs, that he unseats Max Scherzer. That's when it really gets fun, because then you have Bieber, Scherzer, you have Kevin Gausman. And that's where this helps, Dan, because it's not always about the game one matchup. Both teams are going to have good pitchers, whatever. But by the time you get to game 3 and game 4, does one team's depth fall off a cliff, while another team, like the Dodgers, for example, still has an ace caliber pitcher? That's where the advantage lies. And by getting deeper, the Blue Jays, I think, can at least break even there. Maybe not hold the advantage, but at least break even, and that's enough.
You mentioned the P word, the playoffs. I'm scared to think that far ahead, because the Blue Jays consider this a road trip, and they pulled off at a rest stop, and they left the Yankees at the rest stop, when all of a sudden the Yankees have reappeared in the rear view mirror.
Yeah, they're never going to go away. Boston too. It's going to
I'm
be
more scared of the Yankees.
race.
The Yankees just hit 9 home runs?
That's the thing.
On Tuesday night?
I know they don't have Garrett Cole. I know that Aaron Boone and Aaron Judge had a bunch of stuff to say. I know it's a messy, dysfunctional team right now, but when you hit home runs, you can just go on a hot streak and nothing else matters. And that's what they're doing. And if the Blue Jays stumble for 3 or 4 games, this gets tight again. It's not a comfortable lead, even though it's 4 or 5 games hovering around there every day. It's not comfortable. And the Jays need the division. They cannot end up in a wild card game this season. That would be a major letdown if they end up in a wild card game, because the wild card's 3 games. We've seen how that goes in Toronto. It doesn't go well. So these are a few big weeks for Toronto, and there's going to be a big series, September 5, 6, 7, I think it is, against the Yankees, because positioning matters. Winning the AL matters. Being in those top 2 seeds to get past the wild card round really, really matters. And it gets dangerous, Dan. I booked my postseason hotels just yesterday. And for the ALDS, I booked them in 6 different cities. That's where the Jays are at. Like, it's wide open. And it's probably really suspicious that I did that as well. One man booking 6 hotels in 6 different major cities on the same weekend. I'm going to end up on a list or something, man.
Yeah, you're already on that list, probably.
Yeah.
So you've got a very fragile psyche in Toronto sports fans, and they might see a 5-game lead as they see a Leafs 4-1 lead in the 3rd period of a hockey game in the playoffs.
Probably. You're not used to it at this point.
You don't know what to do.
Blue Jays fans, because of this team, have earned a little cockiness, have earned some swagger, and there's always going to be the Canadian inferiority complex mixed with the Toronto complex of always quietly wanting to be New York and Chicago. As someone who is not of Toronto, I like to consider myself visiting Toronto probably for the rest of my life, but it's not my city. I'm always amazed by how success is handled among Toronto sports teams as much as failure. And there is that hesitation of, do we belong? Well, hell yeah. The Blue Jays belong. They are a massive market, despite what, watching a U.S. sports talk show might tell you. The Blue Jays are a huge market, 40 million plus people. That's what California, if California had one team in each pro sport. And the Blue Jays are spending money. That's what I don't think gets talked about enough nationally across Major League Baseball. The Blue Jays are a big dog in this market, in the national major league market. This is where they should be. The past 5-6 years have been underachieving. I don't care that they've made the playoffs as a wild card. They're better than a wild card. They're spending more money than a wild card. This is the conversation they belong in, and it's where they've belonged all along. The performance just hasn't matched up. So this has been huge, and I think it's going to shift, Dan. I think it'll shift, and that's what happened in 15 and 16. There was a bit of a cockiness from everybody. We didn't see that in 2020, 22, or 23. Those playoff runs were like, okay, prove it to me. We're not going to get excited about you yet. And there was a hesitancy to really fall in love with those teams. People love this team. Like, they love the 2025 Blue Jays, and rightfully so. So I think you'll see a bit of that swagger come back, and that's what makes it fun. And that's what makes Rogers Center a scary place to play. That's what brings the noise into there. And it's a special place when people do that.
And Keegan, you gave them a new T-shirt for the Blue Jays merch shop. We belong. Simple as that.
I thought you were going to say, let me know I speak in facts. Tommy Pham.
Oh, that too.
Hey.
Keegs, thanks, buddy.
You got it, Dan.
Thanks for watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.